The basement door was locked from the outside. I knew that before I even tried the handle, because I could hear my 8-year-old grandson crying through it. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind of crying. The quiet, hopeless kind. The kind that says a child has given up on anyone coming to help. It was March 15th, 2024, a Saturday afternoon in Vancouver. My son Michael and his wife Vanessa were supposed to be at the keg on Alberni Street right now, celebrating Vanessa's 35th birthday with 20 of their closest friends. I was supposed to be there too. I'd even bought a new shirt for the occasion. But I wasn't at the keg. I was standing in the hallway of their Kitsilano home, my hand on a locked basement door, listening to Lucas sob. Let me back up. My name is Robert Chen. I'm 67 years old, a retired school principal who spent 42 years in the Vancouver school system. I raised Michael on my own after my wife Margaret died of cancer when he was 6. Lucas is my grandson, Michael's son from his first marriage to Sarah, who passed away from a brain aneurysm 3 years ago. The boy was 5 when he lost his mother, 5 years old, and suddenly the world made no sense anymore. Michael met Vanessa 18 months ago. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep, polished and professional, with that particular brand of charm that comes from years of convincing doctors to prescribe expensive medications. She had 2 daughters from her previous marriage, Olivia, 10, and Chloe, 7. When Michael introduced her to me, I saw how she laughed at his jokes, how she touched his arm, how she made him feel seen again after years of grief. I wanted him to be happy. I wanted Lucas to have a mother figure again. I should have paid more attention to the small things. The way Vanessa's smile never quite reached her eyes when Lucas entered a room, how her daughters always got the front seat in the car while Lucas sat in the back. The comments she'd make about Lucas being difficult or sensitive or behind compared to her girls. Michael would defend his son, but weakly, like he was afraid of rocking the boat. They got married last October, a small ceremony at Queen Elizabeth Park. Lucas was the ring bearer. He took his job so seriously, practicing his walk down the aisle for weeks. In the wedding photos, he's beaming. He thought he was getting a family again. That morning, I'd called Michael to confirm the dinner reservation time. He sounded stressed. Dad, about tonight. There's been a change of plans. What kind of change? Lucas won't be joining us. Vanessa thinks it's better if it's just adults. You know, so she can really relax on her birthday. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Michael, it's a birthday dinner, not a board meeting. Lucas is 8 years old. Where exactly is he supposed to be while we're all out celebrating? We hired a babysitter. It's fine, Dad. Don't make this into a thing. But it was a thing. I could hear it in his voice. The guilt, the resignation, the slow erosion of the man I'd raised. What time's the reservation? 6:30. Look, I've got to go. Vanessa needs help setting up some decorations at home before we leave. See you tonight. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment in Burnaby and thought about what Margaret would have said. She would have driven straight to their house. She would have looked Michael in the eye and reminded him that being a parent means being a parent all the time, not just when it's convenient for your new wife. So that's what I did. I arrived at their house around 4:30 p.m. I'd brought a gift for Vanessa, an expensive bottle of wine she'd mentioned wanting. My plan was simple. Drop off the gift, say hello to everyone, give Lucas a hug, and head home to change for dinner. Maybe smooth things over, remind Michael that Lucas could sit with me if he was worried about the boy bothering anyone. Michael's BMW was already gone from the driveway. They must have left early to set up at the restaurant. I tried the front door. Locked. I have a key because I sometimes water their plants when they travel, so I let myself in. Hello? Anyone home? Silence. Then, faintly, I heard it, crying, coming from downstairs. The basement of their house had been finished before they bought it. Nice space, really. A rec room with a TV, a bathroom, a small storage area. Michael had told me they were planning to convert part of it into a bedroom for Lucas, so the boy could have more space. I descended the stairs. Lucas? Buddy, are you down here? The crying stopped abruptly. Then a small, desperate voice. Grandpa? Where are you? The storage room. It's locked. I can't get out. I found the door. New deadbolt. on the outside. Industrial strength, the kind you install when you really want to keep something secured. My hands were shaking as I turned the lock. Lucas was sitting on a concrete floor among boxes and old furniture. No windows, one bare bulb overhead. He was still in his pajamas. His face was red and swollen from crying. There was a sleeping bag in the corner, a plastic bucket that I realized with horror was meant to serve as a toilet, and a half-empty bottle of water. "Grandpa," he whispered, and then he was in my arms, holding on like I was the only solid thing in a world that had started dissolving around him. I carried him upstairs. He weighed almost nothing. In the kitchen, I sat him on a counter and looked him over. No visible bruises, thank God, but his lips were dry, his hands cold. "When did they put you down there?" "Last night, after dinner. Vanessa said I was grounded. She said I was being punished." "Punished for what?" He started crying again. "I don't know. I asked if I could go to her birthday dinner and she got really mad. She said I always ruin everything. She said her special day shouldn't be ruined by me. Dad tried to say maybe I could come, but she..." He trailed off. "But she what, Lucas?" "She told him he had to choose, her or me. She said if he really loved her, he'd prove it. So he helped put me in the storage room. He said it was just for tonight, just so Vanessa could have one perfect evening." I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, crack, like ice over a lake when the temperature shifts suddenly. My son had locked his 8-year-old child in a basement storage room to please his wife. My son, who I'd raised to be kind, to be strong, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. My son had become someone I didn't recognize. I took out my phone. First, I took photographs. The locked basement door, the storage room, the sleeping bag and bucket. Lucas's face, tear-stained and frightened. Then I called 911. I need to report child endangerment. And I know exactly where the people responsible are right now. The operator took down the information. An officer would be dispatched to the Keg on Alberni Street. Another would come to the house to take my statement and check on Lucas. Then I called the restaurant directly. "The Keg, Alberni Street. This is Jennifer speaking." "Jennifer, there's a birthday party happening there, right now. Vanessa Chen's party. Could you tell me if it started yet?" "Oh yes, sir. They're in our private dining room. It's lovely. She's just opening gifts right now." "Perfect. Don't let anyone leave. The police are on their way." I could hear the confusion in her voice, but she agreed. 20 years as a principal teaches you how to use authority in your voice when necessary. Lucas was sitting at the kitchen table now, drinking orange juice. He kept looking at me like he wasn't sure if this was real, or if he'd wake up back in that storage room. "Grandpa, are Mom and Dad going to be mad?" I knelt down beside him. "Lucas, listen to me carefully. None of this is your fault. Not one single bit. What happened to you is called abuse. It's wrong, it's illegal, and it's never, ever going to happen again. But Vanessa said I deserve it when I'm bad. You're not bad. You're 8 years old. You're a child who lost his mother and is trying his best to exist in a house where someone decided you weren't welcome. That's not being bad. That's being human." The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. The female officer, Constable Morrison, had kind eyes and a gentle way with Lucas. She sat with him while her partner, Constable Patel, took my statement and documented everything with his camera. "Mr. Chen, you did the right thing calling us immediately," Constable Patel said. "This is serious. Confinement of a minor, child endangerment, possibly more charges depending on how long this has been going on." "How long?" I looked at Lucas. "Buddy, has this happened before? Has Vanessa locked you in the storage room before tonight?" He nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes when I make her mad, usually just for a few hours. This was the longest." I felt that crack in my chest widen. Constable Morrison was writing everything down. "We'll need to speak with your son and his wife. Officers are at the restaurant now. We'll also need to involve the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Given the circumstances, Lucas can't return to that home tonight." "He's coming with me," I said. "It wasn't a question." She nodded. "Emergency placement with a relative is ideal. We'll need to do a home assessment, but given your relationship and the immediate danger, I think we can authorize that. While we waited for the social worker to arrive, I made Lucas a sandwich. He ate like he hadn't seen food in days. Maybe he hadn't. I made him 2 more sandwiches. He fell asleep on my couch, finally, completely exhausted. My phone rang. "Michael, Dad, what the hell did you do?" I stepped onto my balcony so Lucas wouldn't wake up. Below me, Burnaby stretched out in the evening light. Normal people living normal lives. "I found your son locked in a storage room like an animal, Michael. What did you think I would do?" "The police showed up at Vanessa's birthday dinner. They questioned us in front of everyone. Do you have any idea how humiliating—" "Humiliating?" My voice was so cold it surprised even me. "Your son was locked in a concrete room with a bucket for a toilet, and you're worried about being embarrassed in front of Vanessa's friends? You don't understand. Lucas can be difficult. Vanessa was just abusing your child, and you helped her do it. You put the lock on that door, Michael. You chose this." Silence. Then, quieter. "I love her, Dad." "I loved your mother?" "Love doesn't mean sacrificing your children. It means being the kind of person your children can count on. You failed Lucas tonight. You failed him, and I don't know if you can ever make up for that. What happens now? Now you figure out if you're the man I raised, or if you're someone who locks his son in a basement. And Michael? Lucas is staying with me. If you or Vanessa try to take him, I will fight you with every resource I have. I spent 42 years protecting children. I'm not stopping now." I hung up. The social worker, a woman named Patricia Huang, arrived at 8 p.m. She interviewed Lucas gently, examined my apartment, asked me detailed questions about my ability to care for an 8-year-old. I showed her the spare bedroom I'd been using as an office. We could set it up for Lucas by tomorrow. "Mr. Chen, I'm placing Lucas in your emergency care for the next 72 hours. We'll schedule a full hearing within the week. Given what I've seen tonight and the police documentation, I expect temporary custody will be granted to you while we investigate the home situation further." After she left, I sat watching Lucas sleep. He'd curled into a tight ball, even in sleep protecting himself. I thought about all the nights he must have gone to bed afraid, wondering when the next punishment would come, why the father who used to read him bedtime stories and make him pancake breakfasts now stood by while his wife treated him like an inconvenience. I didn't sleep that night. I spent it researching family lawyers, child psychologists, reading through British Columbia's child protection laws. By morning, I had a plan. Sunday morning, Lucas woke up confused about where he was. Then he remembered, and I watched relief flood his face. We made pancakes together. He helped measure ingredients, his small hands careful with the measuring cups. "Grandpa, do I have to go back?" "Not if I can help it, buddy." "What about my stuff? My clothes and my books and the picture of my mom?" I hadn't thought about that. All of Lucas's belongings were still at Michael's house. "We'll get them. I promise." That afternoon, accompanied by Constable Morrison, we went to the house. Michael answered the door. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Behind him, I could see Vanessa standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, face hard. "We're here for Lucas's belongings," Constable Morrison said officially. "You've been served with a temporary restraining order. You're not to contact Lucas or Robert Chen except through your lawyers." Michael's face crumpled. "Dad, please. Can we talk about this?" "You had a chance to talk about it," I said. "You had a chance to be a father. You chose differently." We packed Lucas's room, his clothes, his books, his toys, the framed photo of Sarah he kept by his bed. As we loaded boxes into my car, Vanessa came outside. "You're going to regret this, Robert. I'll make sure of it. You're turning Michael against his own father. That boy has always been a problem. You're just too blind to see it." Constable Morrison stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen, I suggest you stop talking. Anything you say right now can and will be used in the investigation and potential criminal proceedings." Vanessa's face flushed red, but she went back inside. In the car, Lucas was quiet. Finally, he said, "Grandpa, why does Vanessa hate me so much? How do you explain narcissism to an 8-year-old? How do you explain that some people see children as competition as obstacles to their perfect life. Lucas, sometimes adults are broken inside in ways that make them hurt people. It's not about you. It was never about you. You could have been the perfect child, and she still would have found reasons to push you away. Because I remind her that Dad had a life before her? Smart kid. Too smart for his own good sometimes. Yeah, buddy. Something like that. The next few days were a blur. I hired Catherine Wolfe, the most aggressive family lawyer in Vancouver. We filed for emergency custody, compiled evidence, prepared for battle. The ministry opened a formal investigation. Teachers at Lucas's school were interviewed. They reported that Lucas had become increasingly withdrawn, that he'd shown up with unexplained bruises, that he'd stopped participating in activities he used to love. A child psychologist, Dr. Sarah Mera, evaluated Lucas. Her report documented signs of ongoing emotional abuse and neglect, anxiety, depression, hypervigilance, the psychological profile of a child living in constant fear. Michael's lawyer tried to argue that I was overreacting, that Vanessa had simply used poor judgment in her discipline methods. But the evidence was overwhelming. The locked storage room, the pattern of isolation, the testimony from school staff, Lucas's own testimony about being told repeatedly he was unwanted, a burden, a mistake. The hearing was scheduled for April 3rd. In the meantime, Lucas lived with me. I enrolled him in a school near my apartment. We established routines, breakfast together, homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories. Slowly, carefully, I watched him start to unfold. He laughed for the first time on March 28th. We were watching a movie, some silly comedy, and he laughed. A real laugh, surprised and joyful. He looked at me like he'd done something wrong, but I just smiled. It's okay to be happy, Lucas. Michael called me twice. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. In the first one, he was angry, defensive. In the second one, he was crying. Dad, I know I messed up. I know I did. But he's my son, please. I just want to talk to him. I want to explain. I don't know what I want. I just know I miss him. I miss both of you. I saved the voicemail but didn't respond. Some lessons you have to learn alone. Vanessa, meanwhile, had hired her own lawyer. She was claiming I'd orchestrated the entire situation, that Lucas had manipulated me, that the locked storage room was taken out of context. Her lawyer tried to paint me as an interfering grandparent undermining their marriage. Catherine Wolfe destroyed that narrative in about 15 minutes. The custody hearing was held in Vancouver Provincial Court, Judge Patricia Hamilton presiding. Catherine presented our evidence methodically. Photographs, police reports, medical evaluations. School records, Dr. Mera's psychological assessment, Lucas's testimony, given in chambers with just the judge and a child advocate present. Vanessa's lawyer had nothing. No evidence of Lucas being a danger to himself or others. No justification for the confinement. No explanation that made locking a child in a basement storage room seem like reasonable discipline. Michael testified. He cried on the stand. He admitted he'd made terrible choices. He said he'd been so afraid of losing Vanessa, so desperate to make the blended family work, that he'd convinced himself Lucas was being dramatic, that Vanessa's methods were strict but necessary. I told myself it was just one night, he said. One night for Vanessa's birthday, and then everything would be better. But that's not true, is it? There were other times, smaller things, times when Lucas would tell me Vanessa said something mean to him, and I'd tell him he was being too sensitive. Times when he'd cry because he wasn't invited to something with Vanessa's girls, and I'd tell him to toughen up. I chose wrong. Over and over. I chose wrong. Judge Hamilton was not sympathetic. Mr. Chen, your son was 8 years old when you locked him in a room overnight. 8 years old, and still grieving his mother. The court finds your choices to be not merely negligent, but actively harmful. You prioritized your romantic relationship over your child's safety and well-being. That is unacceptable. She granted me temporary full custody of Lucas. Michael was granted supervised visitation 2 hours every Sunday afternoon, contingent on him completing a parenting course and attending therapy. Vanessa was granted no contact whatsoever pending the criminal investigation. Because yes, there was a criminal investigation. The Crown was considering charges of child confinement and child endangerment. Vanessa's lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal. We left the courthouse together, Lucas and I. Media vans were outside because somehow the story had leaked. Local news picked it up. Grandfather saves boy from basement prison. The headlines were sensational but not inaccurate. Lucas gripped my hand as reporters shouted questions. Catherine Wolfe ran interference, getting us to my car. As we drove away, Lucas said quietly, "Is it really over?" "The hard part is over. But buddy, there's going to be more. Your dad might want to be in your life again, properly this time. We'll have to figure out what that looks like. Vanessa might go to trial. There'll be more lawyers, more questions. But you're safe now. That part is over." He nodded, processing this. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you found me in the storage room, were you scared?" I thought about how to answer this honestly. Yeah, buddy. I was terrified. Terrified of what might have happened if I hadn't come to the house. Terrified that I'd failed you somehow by not seeing the signs earlier. You didn't fail me. You saved me. Out of the mouths of children. That evening, I got an unexpected call. Michael's mother-in-law, Vanessa's own mother, Sandra Miller. "Mr. Chen, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the court documents. I wanted to apologize." I was silent, waiting. I've known something was wrong for months. The way Vanessa talked about Lucas. The way she'd complain about him constantly. Say he was manipulative, attention-seeking. I told myself it was just the stress of blending families. But I knew, deep down, I knew she was being cruel to that boy. And I didn't say anything because she's my daughter. And I didn't want to believe she was capable of that kind of behavior. "Why are you calling me now?" "Because I testified for you." At the hearing, I told the judge about things I'd seen. Conversations I'd had with Vanessa, where she talked about wanting Lucas gone. My testimony is part of why you won custody. I hadn't known this. Catherine hadn't mentioned it. "Thank you," I said. "That couldn't have been easy. It was necessary. Being a parent means protecting children, even when it costs you something. I'm probably going to lose my relationship with my daughter over this. But that little boy didn't deserve what happened to him." After she hung up, I thought about the different kinds of courage. The courage to act when you discover abuse. The courage to testify against your own child. The courage to admit you were wrong. Michael's first supervised visit happened 2 weeks later. I watched through a one-way window as he sat across from Lucas in a small room at the Family Services Center. A social worker sat in the corner, documenting everything. Michael tried to give Lucas a gift. A new Lego set. Lucas accepted it politely but didn't open it. "I'm sorry," Michael said. "I know that doesn't fix anything. I know saying I'm sorry 1,000 times won't take back what I did. But I need you to know that I love you. I never stopped loving you. I just got lost for a while." Lucas looked at him with those serious 8-year-old eyes. "Grandpa says sometimes adults are broken inside. Are you broken, Dad?" "Yeah, buddy. I think I was. But I'm trying to get fixed." "Okay." They sat in silence for a while. Then Lucas said, "Do you still love Vanessa?" Michael took a long time to answer. "I think I loved the idea of not being alone anymore more than I loved Vanessa herself. I think I was so scared of feeling the way I felt after your mom died that I held on to Vanessa even when I saw her being cruel to you. That was wrong. That was the worst kind of wrong. Are you getting divorced?" "Yeah, we are." "Good." Lucas said it simply, matter-of-factly. "She's mean." After the visit, Michael approached me in the parking lot. "Thank you for not turning him against me completely. I know you could have." "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it for him. He deserves to have a father, if you can figure out how to be one again." "I'm trying, Dad. I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I ended things with Vanessa. I moved into an apartment in Fairview. I'm reading books about trauma and how to help kids recover from emotional abuse. I'm trying." I studied him. He looked older, thinner, broken down, and maybe, possibly, building himself back up differently. "Trying is a start," I said. "But Lucas doesn't owe you forgiveness. You understand that, right? You don't get to rush his healing process because you're feeling guilty. I know. And Michael, if you ever put a woman before your son again, you won't get another chance. Not with me, not with him. This is it. Your one shot at redemption. He nodded. I understand. Vanessa took a plea deal in late May. 3 months in jail, 2 years probation, mandatory anger management, and parenting classes. Though she'd lost custody of her own daughters by then. They'd gone to live with their father full-time. The courtroom was packed when she stood before the judge. Miss Chen, you confined an 8-year-old child in a locked room overnight as punishment, Judge Hamilton said. That child was vulnerable, grieving, and in your care. You failed him catastrophically. The court accepts your plea, but wants to be clear. You are being shown leniency only because this is your first offense. Any repeat of this behavior will result in significantly harsher penalties. Vanessa stood there, stone-faced. She didn't apologize. She didn't show remorse. She took her sentence and left. I heard later that she moved to Calgary after her release, started fresh somewhere no one knew her story. I don't know if she ever thought about Lucas, about what she did to him. I hope she did. I hope it haunted her. Lucas started therapy with Dr. Mara twice a week. He had nightmares at first, would wake up crying, thinking he was back in the storage room. I'd sit with him until he fell back asleep. We created a code word, Maple. If he ever felt unsafe or scared, all he had to say was Maple, and I'd come running. He never had to use it, but knowing it was there helped. By June, he was doing better. He made friends at his new school. He joined the soccer team. He smiled more. He stopped looking over his shoulder constantly, stopped flinching when someone raised their voice. Michael's supervised visits continued. By summer, after completing his court-mandated classes and showing consistent progress in therapy, he was granted unsupervised day visits. He'd take Lucas to Science World, to Stanley Park, to movies. They'd come back, and Lucas would tell me about their day with cautious enthusiasm. Dad's different now, he told me one evening. He listens more. And he doesn't get mad when I talk about Mom. That's good, buddy. Do you think I'll have to live with him again? Not unless you want to. The custody arrangement says you stay with me unless we both agree to change it. You're stuck with me for the long haul, kid. He grinned. Good. In August, we took a trip to Vancouver Island. Just the two of us. We hiked in the rainforest, saw orcas from a whale-watching boat, ate fish and chips on the wharf in Victoria. One evening, sitting on a log watching the sunset over the ocean, Lucas said, I'm happy, Grandpa. I didn't think I'd be happy again after Mom died, but I am. Your mom would be glad to hear that. Do you think she knows? Like, from wherever she is? I'm not particularly religious, but I said, yeah, buddy, I think she knows. And I think she's proud of how brave you've been. September came, a new school year. Lucas started 4th grade. He got invited to birthday parties. He had playdates. He was just a regular kid living a regular life, which was all I'd ever wanted for him. Michael continued to be consistent. Every Sunday, he'd pick up Lucas for the day. He'd bring him back by 6 p.m., on time, every time. He respected the boundaries. He never pushed. He'd ask me how Lucas was doing in school, if there was anything he needed. He was learning to be a father again, slowly. One Sunday in October, almost exactly a year after the wedding, Michael asked if we could talk while Lucas watched TV. I got offered a job in Toronto, he said. Good opportunity, promotion, better pay. But I'm not taking it. Why not? Because Lucas is here. Because I'm finally doing the right thing, and I'm not going to screw it up by moving across the country. I stayed for him, Dad. I'm choosing him this time. It was the right answer. Maybe the first right answer he'd given in years. Does Lucas know you got the offer? Yeah. I told him this morning. He said it was okay if I wanted to go, that he'd understand. But I could see the fear in his eyes. The fear that I'd leave him again. So I told him no. I'm staying right here in Vancouver, and we're going to keep building this thing between us until it's strong again. I nodded. Good. Dad, I know I can never fully make up for what I did. But I need you to know I'm grateful. Grateful you found him that day. Grateful you had the courage to call the police, even though it meant blowing up my life. If you hadn't, I don't know what would have happened. I don't want to think about what would have happened. Then don't. Think about what happens next. Think about being the father Lucas deserves. He left that evening, and Lucas came and sat beside me on the couch. Dad told you about the Toronto job? He did. Are you proud of him for staying? Yeah, buddy. I am. Are you? Lucas thought about this. Yeah, I think so. I'm still mad at him sometimes, for what happened. But I'm proud of him for trying to fix it. That's the thing about healing. It's not linear. It's not clean. Lucas would have good days and bad days. Days when he was angry at Michael. Days when he missed Vanessa's daughters, who used to be like sisters to him. Days when he just missed his mom so much it hurt to breathe. But we got through them together, Lucas and me, and eventually, carefully, Michael too. We became a family again. Not the same family we'd been before, but something new. Something built on honesty this time, and the kind of love that shows up even when it's hard. I'm 68 now. Lucas is 9. Last week, he asked if he could call me Grandpa Dad. Just between us, he said, because I'm like both. I told him he could call me whatever felt right. Sometimes I think about that March afternoon, about what would have happened if I hadn't decided to drop off that birthday gift, if I hadn't heard Lucas crying through the door. The thought terrifies me, but I did go, I did hear him, and when it mattered most, I made the right choice. That's all any of us can do, really. Make the right choice when the moment demands it, even when it's hard, even when it costs us something. Love isn't just the warm, fuzzy feelings. Love is showing up. Love is taking action. Love is choosing the most vulnerable person in the room and saying, I will protect you, no matter what. Lucas is safe now. He's loved. He's healing. And every single day, I get to watch him become more fully himself. The brave, funny, compassionate person he was always meant to be. That's enough for me. That's everything.